Hello and welcome back, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, to another reading by me, Patch.Work.Podfics. Today I'll be reading two chapters from Time is an Illusion That Helps Things Make Sense, chapters 9 and 10. Here's chapter 9, Two Bros on a Wire. Here's the summary. Izuku makes a new friend, and then he heads home to his warm, comfortable house. Maybe he'll even spend the evening talking with his mom. That would be nice. They haven't spent much time together lately. There is a trigger warning in this chapter for suicide mention. Hey, Kirishima? Izuku and Kirishima were sitting beside a bench press, taking a rest from their last set. In the past few months of training, in afternoons and on the weekends, Izuku had learned that the black-haired boy was shy, but had a strong, heroic spirit. In another world, Kirishima would have witnessed a green-haired boy run headlong into danger to save his best friend. He would have been changed by the experience, dyeing his hair and adopting a boisterous personality. This was not that world. "What's up, bro?" Kirishima responded, taking a swig of his water bottle and grinning, a smile filled with sharp teeth. Those teeth reminded Izuku of the rotten taste of sludge sometimes. He liked not to think about it, though. "You're planning to get into UA too, right?" Kirishima looked down, unsure of himself. "Yeah. Somebody like me isn't likely to get in, though. My quirk isn't the flashiest, and I'm not that smart either. Unless by some miracle I ace the practical, there's no chance I'm getting into Gen Ed." "Hey, your quirk is great!" Izuku defended, placing a hand on the boy's rough, rocky shoulder. "I'd love to have your quirk." Izuku realized what he had said, and tried desperately to recover. People didn't usually take too kindly to the quirkless kid looking at their own quirk enviously. While he might have a power registered to him now, that label followed him like a shadow regardless. "Wait! I didn't mean it like that! Only that your quirk has tons of battle applications, and it could be used to defend civilians while also protecting yourself." Yeah, I'm not offended, I swear." Kirishima raised his hands in his defense, trying to placate the clearly nervous teen. "All I was saying is that my quirk is simple, so it's not exactly going to get media attention." He wasn't exactly wrong, and Izuku knew it. As much as he wanted to praise the versatile hardening quirk, one of the few defense-oriented abilities Izuku had ever interacted with, he realized that it wasn't great for media footage. It gave Kirishima a scary, villainous look whenever he used it, and because it couldn't be used as a finishing blow on villains, all the boy could realistically look forward to was becoming a sidekick. Such a marvelous ability, yet destined to always be number 2 to a hero that could actually land an attack. Izuku sighed. "I suppose you aren't wrong. Still, there's so many possibilities for you to utilize your quirk. Not to mention testing that you could do." Kirishima perked up at that. "What, like other than becoming a meat shield?" "Uh-huh." Izuku hummed an affirmation, pulling an old, weathered notebook from his gym bag. "I have some notes on your quirk already. Like..." Izuku paused, closing the notebook in shame. "Actually, never mind me. It's nothing." "No way!" Kirishima grinned, letting his sunny disposition shine through the dull facade. "I've heard your mumbling. If you've got thoughts on my quirk, I want to hear 'em." Shyly, Izuku opened the notebook again and flipped back to the black-haired boy's page. "Well, considering your amount of control around the hardening location, I think you ought to work on loosening your quirk around the joints, so that you can move easier while still shielding the most surface area of your body. Ideally, you can shrink that gap to be like a chink in a suit of armor, or even layer strips of protection for easier range of motion." The boy observed the face of his gym friend, expecting a bad reaction, as he was usually met with. But he didn't see disgust, or annoyance, or rejection. Instead, Kirishima was agreeing. "Yeah, that's a great idea. Kirishima replied. Sensei said something similar to me earlier, but I like your idea of a layered armor? You'll have to show me what you mean by that, but I like how it sounds. Kirishima peered over at the notebook and got a contemplative look on his face. Man, Midoriya, if you have this much in here for me, you're bound to have tons of notes about your own quirk. A dark look fell over Izuku's face. Oh, my quirk is... Kirishima, seeing the boy's face, began to apologize. No, I mean, it's fine, Izuku cut in. It's just that my quirk hurts me. Like, a lot. Izuku stared down at his hands. The palms were soft, barely calloused. The sight of fresh red blood on those hands was always in the back of his mind. If possible, I'd rather not use my quirk ever again. It's a good backup for if things go wrong, but... It's not your first option? Kirishima guessed. Is that why you're training here? To have a better first option? Izuku smiled softly. Yeah, something like that. Anyways. A silence formed between the two boys. They felt closer after that conversation, like the air was clearer between them. Still, the quiet weighed heavily on them. Kirishima was able to hear the tense tone in the other boy's voice whenever he spoke about his quirk, and Izuku was beginning to regret dropping his problems on a near stranger so bluntly. Hey, I saw you had some kind of note about a DNA fabric for my costume. What was that about? Kirishima broke the silence. Izuku brightened up immediately. Oh, no, the DNA fabric isn't for your costume. It's actually for everyone else's. See, most heroes with transformation quirks get special costumes made with their own DNA infused in the material. But in your case, your DNA could be used as a bulletproof layer in your fellow heroes' costumes. That way, you'd be protecting your teammates even without being there as a shield. Kirishima's eyes lit up. Bro, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard! What else have you got? Izuku, overcome by the unexpected praise, hid his face behind his notebook. Are you sure? I don't want to come across as being too personal with some of my suggestions. Kirishima slammed his hands upon the shorter boy's shoulders and looked deep into his eyes. Midoriya, my bro, just read the book. Izuku started to laugh at the unseriousness of the boy. No, of his friend. All right, Izuku agreed, shrugging off his friend's hands from his shoulders and wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. Next on the list is, oh yeah, internal hardening. Have you ever tried hardening your bones directly instead of skin? It's not like you were using your bone marrow anyways. Izuku Midoriya went home with a bounce in his step. For the first time since Kachan, or since ever, really, he had made a friend. One that actually liked him and wanted him around. He swung open the door to his house, practically beaming. A song played in his heart, and he could hardly stop humming the tune as he... Izuku, what happened to your room? The question was quiet, innocent. It came from one Izuku Midoriya, sitting alone in the dining room. The dim lights of the room cast a shadow over the woman's face. Mom? Izuku asked, suddenly overcome by a feeling of apprehension. My room? What about it? Is there a problem? Are you all right? Izuku Midoriya continued, as if her son's words escaped her ears entirely. You've gotten rid of everything. Years of your life. Your entire collection. All down the drain in a month. Finally, the mother looked up. Her eyes, ones filled with a deep and desperate sadness, met her son's own. You can't honestly sit here and tell me that nothing is going on. This just isn't like you, Izuku. Are you really going to deny that? The teen was struck silent. He didn't understand what was going on, which scared him. Something else scared him more. It was the fact that he knew exactly what his mother meant. Mom? You hardly ever talk to me. It's like we're complete strangers in the same house for the past 2 months. Just classic teenager behavior, right? What kid his age spent all of his time talking about his feelings with his mom? Your calendar. It stops in February. That was just so that he could focus on entrance exams. Yeah, a study method. You want to kill yourself, don't you? The words were sterile, dry. It was hard to imagine that such a simple arrangement of sounds could hold such a weight all on their own. Izuku tried to deny it, to conjure to mind an excuse. It couldn't be true. He had so much he wanted to live for. He... For the first time in Izuku Midoriya's life, his congested brain fell silent and empty. Tears dripping from his eyes, all the boy could bring himself to do was speak a simple word. It was one he should have spoken before, one he wished he had spoken every single day, since his life had been filled with phantom pains, nightmares that he dealt with every day since then. Mom! Izuku cried softly, stumbling into the arms of his mother and sobbing. For a moment, everything felt like it would be all right. You might be reading this story with a tear in your eye, cheering on our hero and hoping that he will find peace. Unfortunately, this is not that story. For Izuku Midoriya, things would never get much better than this moment of safety. They would get much, much worse. And that is the end of Chapter 9. I hope you enjoyed, or at least were intrigued by this chapter. I'll be continuing right along into Chapter 10. I'm so messed up I sent my therapist to therapy. Here's the summary. Izuku begins to process his trauma, and finally makes it to UA for exams. There, he and Kirishima meet up and begin their trials together. There is a trigger warning in this chapter for suicide mention. And how does that make you feel? It was such a stupid sentence. So cliche and formulaic that the words sounded like a joke. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, for Izuku Midoriya, they were no joke. The boy didn't respond to his psychiatrist's line of questioning, merely turning his head silently to the window and wishing he was a bird, such that he could fly away from this room and not need to speak anymore. Midoriya, I need you to try for me. Just give me a word or two. That's all I ask. Izuku was trying, really. But every time he opened his mouth, the words caught in his throat. After all, he couldn't expect anyone else to possibly understand what he had gone through. He had died. If Izuku could communicate how he felt, the sensation of his skin melting away from its flesh, or the look of Katsuki's face as he watched his childhood friend commit suicide, well, one person would be walking out of this room as a changed man. Izuku couldn't bring himself to dump his trauma on an innocent stranger, even if he was a psychiatrist, and it was his job. Midoriya, the doctor continued to plead, concern evident on his face. Izuku just wanted to walk out of the office. The entrance exams were rapidly approaching, and these meetings, which never went anywhere, had been cutting into his training time. There was really no reason to be going to these appointments, aside from Mom. Izuku turned his face upwards and plastered on the best fake sad face he could. I'm sorry, Doctor. I was a bit lost in my thoughts. Could you repeat the question? The psychiatrist smiled widely. Izuku had been such a difficult patient, but it looked like he was finally coming around to the treatment. It's no issue, Midoriya. I merely asked how the pressures of applying for such a prestigious school have been affecting you." When Izuku got home, his mom was already gone. She had been working extra shifts to afford her son's new therapy regimen. As the boy began to drop his bag onto the floor and start working on his homework, a flash of color on his otherwise blank walls caught his eye. Izuku slowly walked to the shelf and tenderly picked up the item. It was a figurine. Far from the high-quality collectibles that had once adorned his room, this toy was a cheap, tacky, All Might figure. Its limbs had minimal articulation, and the color was a far cry from the hero's real-life costume dye. But Izuku loved that figure at first sight. In that moment, it was the most beautiful piece of plastic he had ever seen. The boy clutched the figurine to his chest and rubbed away the tears forming in his eyes. How had he forgotten this feeling already? The joy of owning a piece of merchandise for a hero he adored felt so far away, as though he had needed to grow past that part of himself long ago. Izuku loved his mom. Even while pushing herself to the limit, she saw fit to buy her son a simple gift which she knew would bring him the tiniest spot of joy in what she saw was a bleak life. That wasn't entirely accurate. Izuku had things to look forward to in his life now. Kirishima, for example. Never before had the boy had a friend who actually wanted to spend time with him. Izuku loved Kirishima, his source of strength on days when he felt his muscles would fail him and his dreams would collapse in on himself. With these three things to love, and the mental health support needed to recover from his past trauma, Izuku had the opportunity to take a simpler path. He could leave UA behind him and live a peaceful, happy life. But more than anything else, Izuku Midoriya loved saving people. And for a powerless boy like himself, there was just no way to do that without sacrificing his peace, his happiness, and especially his life. Kirishima stood in the cold spring atmosphere, tapping his foot on the ground and breathing out puffs of frosty air. On the horizon, he spotted a familiar tuft of green hair. "Hey, Midoriya, bro!" Kirishima waved his hand wildly in the air, catching the attention of his friend immediately. The change to his hair certainly helped. "Kirishima!" Izuku gasped, both out of breath and shocked at Kirishima's transformation. "Your hair! It's red!" The teen chuckled, running his hands through his hair, the tips of his fingers noticeably stained red. "Yeah, it was kinda spur of the moment. My mom's helped me do it yesterday. It looks weird, doesn't it?" Izuku shook his head wildly and grinned. "No way! It looks super manly." The vocabulary felt strange on Izuku's tongue, but with the way Kirishima's face lit up, it was worth it. Pumping his fist in victory, the red-haired boy beamed toothily at his friend. "Awesome! You ready to go inside?" Izuku shook his head, horror on his face. "No! Why'd you have to remind me?" Kirishima slapped the smaller boy's back jokingly and began to push him inside past the looming gate to UA. "You've got no reason to be nervous. We're both gonna do great." Izuku scowled playfully at his friend. It was amazing just how far Kirishima had come in the past few months, transforming from a shy middle schooler to a confident, slightly older middle schooler. The boys walked together past the gates and through the school. They followed the signs directing the masses of applicants into a hallway, with rooms marked A through G, meant for written examinations. "My ticket says E," Kirishima stated, squinting at his application form. "I'm A. I guess this is where we split up?" Izuku said nervously. Kirishima slapped his friend on the back once more, still grinning. "Oh, come on, don't worry. You've got this in the bag, promise. If anyone needs luck, It's me. Izuku tried to protest, to defend Kirishima's intelligence, but the taller boy had already turned to leave. Okay, Izuku. You've got this, the boy whispered to himself. Izuku stumbled out of examination room A, clutching his head. He had been expecting a difficult test. This was Japan's top hero school, after all, but that exam had surpassed all of his expectations. Each question got exponentially more difficult until the page resembled an IQ test for some kind of super-intelligent alien race over a set of questions meant for literal children. Still, Izuku was fairly happy with his answers. He wasn't confident in all of them, but at least no spaces were left blank. Walking down the hallway, Izuku found Kirishima curled up against the wall right outside of room B. So, how'd it go? Izuku asked hesitantly. I only got through half the test, Kirishima bemoaned, head still buried in his knees. It was all going fine until question 27. Bro, it all went downhill from there. Izuku rubbed the back of his head nervously, suddenly feeling this was not the time to tell his friend about how well he had done on the test. Best not to kick a dog while it was down. I know it'll cheer you up, Izuku smiled, placing a comforting hand on the red-haired boy's shoulder. Kirishima peeked upwards, a hopeful look in his eye. In 15 minutes, it'll be time for the physical exams. The spark in Kirishima's face returned in milliseconds, and the boy sprung up like a coiled spring from his resting place. What are we waiting for, then? Let's go get our hands dirty! Rushing down the hallways of UA, the two boys couldn't keep themselves from smiling, even despite their nervousness. The excitement of being in Japan's most famous hero school, mixed with the upcoming practical exam, made for an addictive concoction. The pair slipped into the auditorium a few minutes before the time stated on their papers, and found seats near the front row. Shouldn't we sit further back? Izuku whispered, not enjoying the prospect of sitting front and center in a room rapidly filling with hundreds of students. No way! Kirishima whisper-yelled back. The closer to the front we sit, the closer we'll be to President Mike. I heard he's going to be running this exam. That was enough to motivate Izuku. Driven by hope to see a real pro-hero up close, the pair took their seats, mere moments before the lights began to dim overhead. A tall man with bright yellow hair strode into the room from the back entrance, and the room fell into an awed hush. A real pro-hero was standing on stage, just feet away from where Izuku and Kirishima sat. Good morning, little listeners! President Mike yelled in introduction, a statement so loud Izuku's ears felt like they might bleed. Maybe there was a valid reason so few students sat in the front rows. The pro-hero coughed and dampened his quirk upon seeing the shell-shocked faces in the crowd. It's time for the fun part of today, the practical examination! The wall behind President Mike lit up, showing a giant map on the glowing screen. As you can see, there are 7 testing grounds, marked A through G. These grounds will not match up with the same assignments you received in the previous test, to prevent sneaky cheaters. The hero wagged his finger at the crowd, as if telling off the tryhards who tried to memorize the layout of what they assumed to be their assigned training ground in preparation for the exam. Instead, Group A will meet at Training Grounds B, Group B goes to Group C, etc. Capiche? The crowd murmured. I said, capiche? Could I get a little noise in here? The crowd roared in agreement. Great! Mike yelled back, holding 2 thumbs up to the crowd. This test will take place in 7 mock cities, each populated by robots. The screen changed to display 3 types of robots, each marked with a point value 1 through 3. Excuse me, sir, a voice called out from the crowd. Izuku turned around to see a muscular boy with glasses interrupting Mike's explanation. On the handouts provided, there are 4 robots. If this is a mistake in UA's examination materials, I would be ashamed of... Whoa there, little listener. Calm down, Mike placated. I was getting there. The screen shifted, revealing a 4th robot model, labeled as 0 points. The glasses boy sat down, embarrassed. There is technically a 4th robo-villain, but they are worth exactly 0 points. The hero crossed his hands in front of himself in an X. It's better to avoid them, since there's no reason to seek them out. The screen changed a final time, displaying the emblem of UA. So, how are we feeling? Are you ready to get out there and kick some robo-posterior? Give me a plus ultra if you are. The crowd made a nervous half attempt at a cheer. You can do better than that! The hero tried again, his quirk fully online. Plus ultra! The students cheered, Izuku included in the masses this time. Izuku had yelled wholeheartedly both times, of course. Then follow me, listeners! The hero called, directing the hundreds of children out of the room and into the chilly spring air. Izuku and his friend followed the crowd, eager for their final test, a trial that would determine their future at UA. They were willing to do anything to achieve their dreams, for better or for worse. And that is the end of Chapter 10. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you all so much for listening. I'll be hopefully out with Chapters 11 and 12 soon, but this is the first time the Podfic is completely caught up to the writing, so those chapters need to be written first. So, see you all later. Patch out.